Today is the first video in a new series of unboxings slash first impressions videos that I will be doing here on this channel for new products, SH Monster Arts, not NECA. I've already got a little bit of brain rot from the video I just shot. Haya Toys, Super 7, all that good stuff. I'm going to be taking these things out of the packaging, giving you my open, honest first impressions, breaking them down from a more casual perspective. And I gotta say, for the first figure to be opening the series with, this was an absolute disaster. Let's break it down. So here we are with Grim Dragon. Now, I ordered this unit off of AliExpress, and if you're familiar with these types of products off of AliExpress, sometimes you have an option to buy it out of the box. I opted to purchase a version that came with a box. Now, as for the story about Grim Dragon, there's some evidence to suggest that this figure was originally intended to be released by NECA Toys back when they had the license for Toho. And there's a few things that sort of point in the direction of this being a NECA mold and intended to be a NECA figure. And one of the things that might be a little bit more of a dead giveaway, we'll have to investigate once we actually get it out of the box. But if you're familiar with NECA Toys' history, some of their older and more sought-after figures, like the original Mirage Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they have been knocked off to death. To death. You can get them on AliExpress. They are really, really affordable. If you want the original figures from NECA Toys, there's basically no point because they've been knocked off so badly. And so there is belief that this figure was intended to be released by NECA Toys because allegedly Randy, who is the head of NECA Toys, allegedly he said that if he was going to make a Mechagodzilla figure, he wanted to do something that was rather unique, unexpected, outside of the box, and Ready Player One was a very good option for a character like that. And in fact, if you go to AliExpress right now and you look up different versions of this figure, you might see it come in a poster box that looks very, very similar to the poster boxes that we were getting from NECA towards the end of their run with the Godzilla line. And as the legend goes, NECA may have been in the stages of tooling this, getting it prototyped, because NECA has always had a really short timeline between prototype, reveal, and solicitation, and actually getting these things into your hands. The story goes that perhaps they were far along into production of this figure before the license was pulled out from underneath them, and the molds just kind of got distributed somewhere in China, and now we have the Grim Dragon figure you see before you. So with all that being said, let's get him out of the packaging and see what we have here. So at this point, you've already gotten a pretty decent look at the box, right? The only thing you need to see is the bottom, just says Grim Dragon. Now, unfortunately, we do have a bit of a Lego variant of our figure. That's right, there are some things sort of bouncing around in there that definitely shouldn't be bouncing around in there. So we'll have to open it up and see what we're dealing with. Now, I did get the darker blue sort of gunmetal look for the figure. It was a little bit more appealing to me than the standard like bright silver that you're used to with a Mechagodzilla figure. I just really liked how this looked, and I thought that it would help to sort of pop on the shelf. So tape looked pretty solid, and again, this is an AliExpress figure, and so the packaging standard has already been exceeded, I would say. It actually came in a very nice bubble mailer. It was very, very well secured. So, there he is in his little clamshell prison. Let's get... There's all of the pieces just sort of floating around in there. Take that off. There you have Grim Dragon. Here is the tail. And I read online somewhere that the later issues of this figure had better tail articulation. Oh, there's like some kind of fluff there. Don't like that. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 pieces. So the tail's actually quite flexible, which is nice. Now we gotta deal with all this crap. We've got a hand stuck in there. Get rid of that. There is whatever this was, a piece of human hair. And you've got a absolute boatload of accessories here. You've got missiles, you've got missile launchers, you've got what looks to be like guns or flamethrowers, and he's got alternate hands like missile firing fingers like we've seen in the movie. So let me get myself oriented here and we'll get right back to it. So let's see if we can do a quick rundown of the articulation. So the head, swivel at the mouth, nothing going on inside the mouth. Head turns, it's on a ball joint, but realistically you're gonna get a swivel and maybe a little bit of pivot. This upper neck portion, it does feel like it's on a ball joint, but again, swivel is probably the most realistic you're going to get out of that. Then there's this section here, which is on a ball joint. It's probably going to need some kind of heat treatment, but it doesn't really want to move. Shoulders, ball joint. Can get it in and out just a little bit. Elbows go more than 90 degrees. Oh my goodness. Hands, swivel, ball joint. Moving down to the legs, they connect in on a ball joint. They don't really want to move inward. They move outward just a little bit. They kind of turn on this sort of angle. We have swivel here, so you can get that. And it broke.
This is probably the biggest indication that this was intended to be a NECA release.
Yep. So I don't know what I expected from AliExpress. Ankles. They pivot. Tail, we've already covered the tail. Paint flaking off all over the place. Tail's actually decently flexible. Just wish it would stay on. But, there he is. So here is Grim Dragon opened up out of the packaging with some of his accessories equipped. Now, if you didn't notice that right now, if you maybe don't notice that on my hand right there, this guy has paint flaking off like you wouldn't believe it. And or maybe you would believe it because I got this off of AliExpress. Yeah, getting this guy, trying to get that tail on, I'll have to heat treat it or something. The paint's flaking off. It is clearly not of the best quality. Now, he does come with a ton of accessories. He's got the shoulder-mounted rocket cannons. He's got the wrist-mounted missile launchers. He comes with missiles that can actually plug into those launchers. He has these separate sort of like javelin style missiles. I'm not sure where they equipped. I think they equipped onto his back or shoulders. He's got the missile firing fingers, which, yeah, they look pretty cool. I think notably he's got a drill hand, which looks a lot like Kiyu's drill hand. So, take that for what it's worth. But here he is, and I gotta say, it's not worth the money. just straight up, I paid about 50-60 Canadian dollars for this guy, and just paint flaking off. Some of the joints are relatively loose. It's aesthetically, I like the idea of it and I like the design, but in practice it's a knockoff, right? Like, it's a third party, not even like fourth or fifth party type figure. It's not worth it. I got human hair in my package. I got like fluff in the tail. I find it very difficult to recommend this figure, especially considering that there are ones on AliExpress that are like $20-30 cheaper. Like, I could not imagine getting a worse quality version of this figure that actually stays together, right? Like, obviously, if it's falling apart, then yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, things to say here about this guy. The articulation is pretty decent. Some of the joints are a little bit stiff. There's a torso cut here. It doesn't really want to move, so maybe it's a issue of heat treatment. The head's on a ball joint swivel. Let me rephrase that. It's on a ball joint, but the amount of motion, rotation you're going to get out of it, it's basically a swivel. And, you know, it's a bit of a bummer. This guy looks really, really cool. It's just that the only means of really getting him leave you with a really, you know, lackluster execution of the product. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that there may have been a dead giveaway as to whether or not this figure was ever intended to be a NECA Toys release. Some versions of this mold that you can find on AliExpress come with a Mechagodzilla beam effect, like the most recurring beam effect that we're used to seeing, right? Like there's the ones that came with BioGoji, but I'm not talking about those ones. I'm talking about the more traditional looking mist effect. This guy does not have a port in the mouth to fit such a beam effect. It's just very clean in there. Doesn't look like anything's gonna situate. But there are versions of the mold where the port exists in the mouth and you can plug in the beam effect. So take that for what it's worth. It does lend credibility to the idea that this was intended to be a NECA figure at one point, but the jury's out on it. We'll probably never get an official answer. I would be very surprised if we ever got an official answer as to, you know, where this thing came from. And it's probably going to end up being a similar story to the Showa King Ghidorah figure that made its waves when the 2019 Monster Arts figure was being bootlegged to hell. We all thought that it might have been a Monster Arts figure that was in development and molds got stolen or whatever. I think it has since been confirmed that that is not the case, and maybe there is even a confirmed case of what this figure is and what it represents, where it was supposed to be distributed, that I am just not privy to. So if you know, let me know in the comment section down below. So final thoughts on this guy: very, very cool in concept. The execution is definitely lacking. Don't buy this figure. do not buy it. Do not spend your hard-earned money on this figure unless you absolutely love it. If you're going to maybe add your own paint, you're going to do your own customizations, you know, if you're okay with the risk of getting a faulty copy that flakes off all over the place, you know, go for it. It's up to you how you want to spend your money. I think that the story behind this figure is much more interesting than the execution, as it gives us a peer into what might have been if NECA pursued a Mechagodzilla and if they had continued the license. And that's the story of Grim Dragon. What do you think? I would ask you if you're going to buy it, but please don't buy it. But I'll ask you this instead. Would you be interested in NECA picking up the Godzilla license in some effect, right? Like, it doesn't have to be the 6-inch line. It could be the 12-inch line, like I talked about previously. Would you be interested if NECA picked up the license again? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank all of the Category 3 channel members for their continued support, including the newest member to the group, Spire Talon. Talon is an up-and-coming kaiju YouTuber, and I'm very excited to see where he goes with his YouTube channel. Social links are in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.